After years of studying biology, both in undergrad and a bit of my grad school, I have come to have a healthy fear and or lack of fear for certain things. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with snakes. This includes venomous and non-venomous, constrictors, non-constrictors. Overall, I think I'm going to put them in a healthy respect. I definitely am a little nervous around venomous ones. I did once get a chance to interact with one, which was really terrifying because I wasn't sure if it was venomous or not. And then the guide was like, oh yeah, don't touch that. It's like, okay, cool. But anyways, overall, snakes are really cool. They're really important for the environment. They eat a ton of rodents. So if you have one living in your yard, it can actually help prevent things like mice and other small rodent populations. Some actually don't even just eat rodents. They'll eat things like salamanders, insects, all sorts of things. Maybe like thistle. Why is there a deer? That's not a deer. That is to represent chronic wasting disease. Now that goes straight into terrifying, starting off strong. So chronic wasting disease is actually really weird. It's kind of like the zombie apocalypse, but for deer. You may have heard about it in the news. It doesn't look like it can jump to humans, so don't freak out. Actually, maybe I'll move it to some fear because it can't jump to humans that we know of. So essentially, I believe it's a prion thing. It spreads through urine and other excrement. And once a deer has it, they just kind of deteriorate and die. And sometimes their behavior gets a bit weird. It's kind of like rabies if rabies wasn't a virus and also didn't cause aggression. It's kind of like rabies in terms of its fatalities. Okay, so now we got Bunsen burners. I'd say a healthy respect for those. Definitely, totally have not almost caught things on fire before that weren't supposed to be on fire. But hey, I've improved somewhat. Now I supervise students using Bunsen burners, which is honestly way more terrifying than actually using them. But you know, no one's caught anything on fire yet, so I count that as a win. Airplanes. I gotta say, I am one of those people. I have a fear of flights. I really dislike flights. I would love to put it in terrifying, but knowing a bit more about the aerodynamics put in some fear. So why do I know this as a biologist? Well, actually, I learned this stuff in my ornithology class. We discussed the airflow and how birds keep themselves aloft with different air currents going like under the wing to push them up, and then the over the wing helps keep them like steady, and how that inspired airplanes. So definitely used to be terrifying for me, but now they're in the some fear category. So hey, it's an improvement. Chemistry. Every college's worst nightmare, or at least my worst nightmare. I actually did well in chemistry. Organic was a lot of fun, but I forgot everything. I think I'm going to put in healthy respect. I appreciate chemistry and all that it does, but I don't really want to interact with it. And grass. If you can't tell by the fact that I'm a Vtuber, I do not touch grass. So the bat isn't necessarily a bat. In this case, it's a visual representation of rabies, which also goes in the terrifying column. Rabies is basically 100% fatal. Anyone who's really survived, it was, I think, like 3 people, something like that. And that protocol is no longer being used because it's essentially like torture and you don't really survive. These days, if you think you may have been exposed by being bitten by a wild animal, it's important to get a rabies vaccination because that will keep you safe. The problem is once you start showing symptoms, it is 100% fatal. So, no thank you. Okay, so now we've got wasps, not just bees, wasps. I'm going to put in the healthy respect. I used to be someone who was really not a fan of them, but they're really, really cool. Okay, they're really cool for some messed up reasons. So a lot of them will lay their eggs inside caterpillars, which is really, really cool to learn about. And also some do pollinate. Disclaimer, not all wasps are aggressive, and some will just kind of chill and leave you alone. Those ones are fun, and the ones that aren't and are extremely aggressive are the reason they aren't amazing. So far, no amazings, but it's time to change that. Sharks. They are cute, they are cool, they don't really attack humans. They're pretty neat. Sharks are fun. I don't know much about them, not a marine biologist, but man, they are neat. Okay, tetanus, terrifying. Tetanus is second to rabies for me for things that are terrifying. It sounds awful. It's super painful. It's important to be vaccinated. And also, if you think you stepped on something like a rusty nail, you might want to talk to your doctor. Although tetanus isn't just found on rusty nails, it's also found in the dirt. So that's why it's important to be vaccinated for tetanus, even if you don't think you're going to encounter rusty metal. Okay, this next one is a bit complicated. RStudio. Or just the coding language R. I'm going to put in some fear. Unfortunately, in grad school, if you go into ecology, you will need to know R. It is not a choice. RStudio is much better than the base version of R. And when you use things like ggplot to make things pretty and tidyverse to make things, well, tidy and more easily understandable and doable, I don't really know words for it, it's better. You will need to know it. The course I took to learn it was the most rigorous course I have ever taken in my life, and hopefully it will remain the most rigorous course I've ever taken in my life. Grades. I've got a healthy respect for them. They're not as terrifying as they used to be to me, but that's because I'm in grad school and grades don't really matter as much because you don't take many classes, and if you pass, you pass. If you fail, you fail. That's kind of it. But in undergrad, man, I was always stressed about grades. I gotta say though, grades aren't everything. You got like B's and A's, you're fine, unless you are applying to like a Harvard for grad school or something like that. And for high schoolers, I'd say the same thing. As long as you're a well-rounded student, your grades don't really matter as much as some might like to say. Unless, of course, you're going for something like an Ivy school or Harvard. I don't know, is Harvard an Ivy? Oh, I didn't go to Harvard, so oh, there's a reason for that. Anyways, okay, so mold. I have some fear for mold still. I actually have worked with mold a bit in the lab, but mold is just kind of nasty. Here's a fun little story time. When I was in high school, we had to do an experiment with some mold, and I decided I would get a few pieces of bread and kind of see what happens when some were sprayed with water, some were sprayed with water and like a little sugar, and then I left them to just kind of sit. So cue next year, I'm looking through my closet and I find a Ziploc bag with some white bread in it. There's no visible mold on it, which is kind of weird. So I open it. The smell was horrible. So then I did, what you should do, and I brought it to school. The poor teacher that I was in class with, I brought it to the one I had the previous year, and she was like, Thistle, please tell me you did not smell the bread. And I was like, yeah, no, I totally just happened to find it. And she's like, Thistle, you just told me it smelled horrible. Please tell me you at least wafted. I did not waft. I stuck my face in there. And then I was terrified of getting a mold infection in my lungs. Fun story. Let's move on to horses. Yes, this is literally just horses. They are terrifying animals. There's so much power in that body, and they could like curb stomp your head in. I knew a few people who did horseback riding in college. They didn't do it at college, but they did it previously. And the amount of injuries I heard, yeah, that's going in some fear. I used to be like, as a kid, oh, horses are amazing. They're so cute. I love them. No. Bears. Amazing. They are cute. They are fluffy. And unfortunately, you can't pet them or you'll get mauled. But yeah. You could probably pet them once. The deep sea. Okay, this is complicated. So I would say the deep sea itself is terrifying in that we don't really know what's out there. We don't know everything about it. So much is left to be explored, which for some people I'm sure is very exciting. But for me, as a land ecologist, no. But also there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So I think I'm going to put it in some fear. Things like this jellyfish, a Portuguese man-o-war, definitely are in the terrifying category. They cause extreme pain, they can get tangled up, and you just, no. They are pretty, but they deserve to be in the terrifying category. Lastly, spiders. I'm going to put that in the healthy respect category. I appreciate them. I like what they do. There's a spider living in my bathroom. I named him George. Spider George in my bathroom eating flies. Spider George, he eats flies or whatever else gets in my apartment. Anyways, so jumping spiders and tarantulas are the spiders that I actually like. I don't like most other spiders. They still creep me out, but I appreciate what they do for the environment. They eat a lot of pests. They're pretty cool. You know? Healthy respect. Well, that looks like it's everything. So I just thought I'd give you a short little video of a fun tier list of my fears as a biologist. Each of these has at least been a fear at some point, whether they were a fear previously, like spiders, or if they've become a fear, like horses. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!